If God tells me to do something, I'm going to do it, even if it's very, very unpleasant. And for the record, I don't care who sees this video. Hopefully, it will bless you in some way because it has been laid on me very strongly. I need to do this. So, I have talked about the real testimony, and I'm going to share it today. So, I was born to a married couple. They had been married several years, I believe, and they had had a loss of the child before me, and she took it very badly and decided that the best thing for her would be if she could just have another baby. They tried for a year or two, and they got pregnant with me. And she drank very, very heavily by all accounts during the entire pregnancy carrying me. As a result, I have brain damage, fetal alcohol syndrome. I also have some differences like a crooked little finger, low hairline in the back, short femurs, things like that. It's not obvious really to look at me, but if you know fetal alcohol syndrome facial features, I have some of them. And when I was born, she neglected me very severely. I wasn't fed, I wasn't changed for several hours a day while my older sister and my dad were away from the house. When they came home, they would care for me, but in the meantime, during the day, just laying there in the crib. I remember one very early childhood memory. I had been crying, and I stopped, and I was in my crib, and I was holding on, and she came in the room, and she was drunk. I could smell the alcohol on her, and she was manic. She was also bipolar. And she was very affectionately aggressive in her approach. And it scared the hell out of me. And she smelled like alcohol. She smelled like sweat. She smelled like cigarettes. And I started crying again. And that was the first couple of years of my life. Eventually, it got so bad, I was told that child services got involved. And she was given a choice to surrender custody to my dad or face charges. And she gave custody to my dad. It's unclear how they broke up, what was the trigger on the breaking up, but they did break up. Dad found a full-time daycare that would take me, so he had me in the daycare, and that was a lot better for me all around. He remarried when I was 5. She had her own kids. Now, I'm going to keep the commandments, and I'm going to fast forward here to when I was 13. I had a very, very serious depression, and I didn't even know what day it was. I was totally submerged in the depression. I couldn't see a way out. And my parents were with Kaiser Healthcare. Kaiser wasn't really well equipped to handle very damaged kids at that point in time. They had me in like a once a week counseling session, group therapy with some other troubled kids. It didn't help at all. And I just kept getting worse and worse and worse. They finally made a referral to a psychiatrist. And this is the 80s, the late 80s. And they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put her on Prozac. It's this brand new antidepressant. It's really going to fix her wagon. And it was really talked up to me. This is what I needed. I had a chemical imbalance. It was all going to get better. And I took it. And I went from severely depressed to severely depressed and suicidal. I didn't talk about the suicidal because, we don't talk about that. And they doubled the dose. It was very, very bad. I couldn't stop thinking about just ending everything. Nothing was worse than the thought of waking up tomorrow. I just couldn't. And I made plans. And I had it all laid out. And the next day I was going to do ABC. And before I went to bed, I got there we go. I got my Bible. I've had this most of my life. And I took it to God and I said, I had gotten saved when I was 8. I wasn't practicing, all the time, but I was saved. I did love Jesus, and I told him, I can't do this, Lord. I can't wake up tomorrow. I can't wake up the next day. I cannot handle it. And if I'm going to do this, if you don't want me to do this, you have to show me that. You have to show me how to make this stop, because I can't. And I managed to fall asleep, and I woke up, and I was wrapped in the most amazing love and comfort imaginable. It was like God had me completely swaddled in his love. And he spoke to my heart. And he said, Heather, this is as bad as it's ever going to get in your life. Ever. Nothing will ever be as bad as where you are right now. Because it was bad. He said, it's going to get better. I'm going to use you in ways you don't see yet. But you need to trust me. And this is what you need to do. Tomorrow, I need you to get up, get dressed, go to school. You need to go to the school guidance counselor. And you need to tell him what you were going to do. And then he just kind of put his hand on me, and I went to sleep. And I woke up. And I went to school. And I talked to the guidance counselor, and his eyes about fell out of his head. And I was admitted to a hospital that day. And in some ways it was very helpful that I could see that there are other people out there who are really hurting. In other ways it wasn't. They kept giving me the Prozac. They kept giving me the Prozac till I was 17. I am the reason, one of the reasons, they have the black box warning on the Prozac now, that you do not give it to teenagers because it makes them suicidal. I'm one of the reasons. And, so they sent me home, and I had problems as a teen. Some of it was my problems, some of it was family problems, but again, I'm going to respect the commandments and honor my parents, so that's all I'm going to say. I got to 17, and I had been diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome, but I was not told of the diagnosis. I was told I had a problem, a disability, and that it was going to basically ruin my life. My parents were told I would never be able to live independently. I've been living in this house, my house, for 22 years now. So, they had me in a job training program where I met a man. He was very charming at first, but he was a lot older than me, so we had to sneak around. So I felt, because I was 17, he was 37, and he was very charming, and rolled out the flattery, you're so sexy, this, that, the other, just, full bore seduction thing, and I fell for it, and we ran off together after I turned 18. He was not good with the grooming. I started getting bladder infections, yeast infections, all kinds of infections. And I remember one day I said, and you made an approach, and I said, I can't. And this was like 2 weeks after I moved in with him. You know, I was ready to give up my whole life for this man. All my plans, all my dreams, all my hopes. And he said, what good are you then? Okay, so 11 years with him, he won't marry me. He always makes sure his name's on the lease and I'm not, so he can throw me out at any time. He's threatening to throw me out whenever he wants. He did throw me out in my 90 once because I left a dirty dish in the sink. More than once he assaulted me over dirty dishes in the sink. He had a thing about the sink. And he was just extremely abusive. He cheated. Not only did he cheat, if I forgave him and we resumed relations again, he would bring up the other woman when we were together. Oh, she liked that too. And then why are you mad? And I took it to God. In, I think, 2002, about 10 years in. And I said, God, I can't do this. He said, hang on. Things are going to change. And he's going to demand to marry you. And I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah, because he was always making excuses why I couldn't marry me. I was defective. I was damaged. I was this. Worthless POS and stupid bitch were his favorite names for me. Just very, very verbally abusive, physically abusive on occasion. If he was getting drunk, I knew not to let him corner me anywhere. That's why I still have some PTSD. I do not like being trapped anywhere. I need an exit wherever I am. And I don't like people coming up behind me when I'm working. I don't like that at all. So we had a business together, and I quit my office job where I was making okay money to go work for him, and he was paying me a pittance because, you know, he had bills or whatever, he had to pay me the pittance, and he was taking care of the rent anyway, so that it didn't matter, that kind of stuff. And I needed that for 20 years. Had me under his thumb financially, that I basically had no resources except this. And I didn't have any support from anybody on the outside. Nobody. People knew what was going on. They didn't care. Or I was told, don't make us choose. That kind of thing. So he got run over on his way to work. He was dead at the scene. For at least 10 minutes, according to the paramedic. He came back. And I thought to myself, well, if God brought him back, he's going to be different, because God showed him what needs to change. And at first it looked that way. And sure enough, he did demand to marry me, especially when he found out his family just threw him out like an old tampon. And they didn't want a thing to deal with him. They didn't want to lift a finger. And they had history. I can understand why, but that's on them. That's between them. And so I took him home. He's in a wheelchair now. And at first he was very sweet and loving, and I thought, okay, this is it. And 2 months after we got married, not only was he drinking again, one night he choked me. He pinned me up against the wall. He was choking me. And the abuse, physical abuse, escalated. And I had no hope. And people knew this was happening. Several people people at least knew this was happening. I had escape hatches, basically, but I could get away for a little while and come back, but I couldn't stay gone for long. And when we went to microchip the cats and get them their shots at the vet, Ron made a big point of, I wanted them to be in my name. And I thought, that's really sweet. And then we were having an argument one night, and he said, why do you think I put the cats in my name? I can put them down whenever I want. You'd better be careful if you leave. You might not like what you come back to. So I had that also, and I had no money. And I knew I wasn't going to get any kind of reference because I spent all this time working for him. Who was going to hire me? So I was stuck. And I had to turn to God. This is my only comfort. And I turned my faith, dug in here, and he sustained me through all of it. He gave me what I needed to get through it. And he kept telling me, this is working for good. This is working for good. You're going to get beauty for these ashes, Heather. It's working for good. I gave up my chance to have kids. I gave up my chance to be happy and loved and respected and valued. I gave it all up. And for a tissue paper illusion of love. But there was never any respect from him, never. And so my faith kept me going. I read my Bible until the pages were falling out. I just kept going. And people were asking how Ron ended up in the wheelchair, which led to an opportunity to do testimony. I had Thomas Nelson had started doing these Million Bible campaign where they published 1 million paperback Bibles, kind of like this, and they were like this, just a basic paperback, and they were $1. And I like to buy them and just carry them around, read them, and I didn't care if they got beat up because I didn't want to, beat up the precious here. And I was giving them out. When Ron was in ICU, there was a waiting room, and one day I had my Bible, and I'm in the waiting room. We're about a week in. We all know each other, all the families of these accident victims, or one guy was assaulted, and they were hurting so bad. We were all hurting so bad. We had no idea what was going to happen. All we had was hope and a prayer, and some of them didn't even have a prayer, and they were just hurting so bad. And I had some of these little Bibles around, and Ron was always very big on, don't you embarrass me. That was very, very big with him. And I'm off. And sometimes I say off the wall things or do off the wall things, and people are like, what? So that would get him very, very upset, and then the abuse would ensue. But he's in a coma, so I brought those Bibles to the waiting room, and they always kicked us out for lunch at like 1 to 2, so they could clean it. So right after the cleaners started, I put the Bibles on all the tables where everybody was hanging out, and then I went to lunch, and I got back at like 2:15. Every single family in this room is like this with the Bibles. That's what got me started. And people were saying, I hope I can take this home. And I said, I'm sure whoever brought it wouldn't mind. And they all knew it was me. So anyway, they took them. And those are my first recipients. And I wish I could keep doing that at the hospital. But when I tried to go back, they're like, no, that's not happening. But I did get some people. But that's what got me started on the Bible handouts. And I was reading a book on evangelism one day. I don't usually read books on evangelism. I just read the Bible because I believe the Bible is the best direction on what God wants me to be doing. But I happened to pick up this book on clearance, and he had a very good section on God likes to use broken people. I'm like, hey, that's me. And if you ask God to use you, he will. Okay. Ask him to give you a heart for the unreached. Okay, Lord, do it. And he has. Boy, has he. And I was praying, and I said, Lord, can you use me? Can you use me at all? And he gave me a vision. I was standing on a corner at Veterans and Antoine on the median, actually. And I was holding up a sign, and it said, free Bibles. And I thought, and I had like a box at my feet. And I thought, I can do that. I've got the Bibles. I have cardboard in the garage. I have a marker. Why can't I do this tomorrow? So I said, okay, Lord. I mean, it lined up 100% with everything that's in here. Everything. God says, preach the gospel. Matthew 28, all nations. So I did it. Everybody thought I was insane, but I handed out 72 Bibles that day with a crappy cardboard sign about this big. And that got me launched on the Bible handout ministry. And I was handing out bags of candy to my drivers. It's actually kind of a thing in my family. My second cousin did that too. She handed out candy to everybody. She was like the candy lady in El Paso. And sorry, I need to blow my nose. And of course, this thing is covered in cat dander, so it's not gonna help. But so I was already doing the candy, and I was mugged in 2009 at the bus stop right outside my neighborhood, actually, and I beat him up, and he got away with the bag, but my Bible, I had a small Bible in there, that bounced out, so I was okay. I didn't care if he got the bag after that. But and I later gave the Bible, a week or two later, I gave the Bible to a guy who was dying of cancer, so I was really, really glad I had it to give him. And but he got the candy, and I was thinking, I wish I had the gospel in there, because God laid it on me. Heather, you need to pray for this man. And I did, and I have. And I claim him for Jesus. And one day, somebody's going to walk up to me in heaven and say, Heather, remember me? I was Thug Boy, the kid that tried to rob you. And because of you, I got on the right path. I got a ministry. I got a family. I got a career. I was on the right path my whole life. I helped lead other people to Jesus. That's what's going to happen one day, because I prayed. Because the Bible says, pray for those who do you wrong. Pray for them. And I have, every single one. Even Ron, especially Ron. And, but I was thinking, I wish I had the gospel in there. And I did some research, and I found these. And I thought, this is the gospel. It's all Bible verses. Nothing weird. This is a good starting point for people. And people tell me they love these books. And they really are great. I can get them in like any language. World Missionary Press. And so I started putting the gospel in there. And I have handed out thousands of those. I have handed out thousands of Bibles on the street corners. I go to some of the worst neighborhoods in Northwest Houston, Imperial Valley and Greens Road, DeSoto and Antoine. I go there. I stand there. They're dealing drugs right in front of me. They're looking at me. I'm playing blind. I'm just waving at the cars. Hey, I got free Bibles here. That is what God has called me to do. That's what I'm going to do. He has called me to love the homeless, the mentally ill, the crackhead, the service worker. And I'm going to do that. I am going to love them until the minute my heart stops beating. Because that's what he made me for. And that is the real testimony.